Today's edition of the podcast is brought to you by Coach Me Plus. Coach Me Plus is the leader in athlete management software and a product that I've been lucky enough to be using for a little over a year now. Only rivaled by the impeccable customer service that Kevin and his staff provides, Coach Me Plus's ability to constantly be amoeba-like in their ability to mold and matriculate what you're trying to get across and bring together is absolutely fantastic. Their constant pursuit of better ways and better methods and innovations and progress to their own product is absolutely fantastic. Go over to CoachMePlus.com. Check out what they got, guys. It's something that I guarantee you won't be disappointed with.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, we have an absolutely killer talk. We're going to sit down and talk with ETSU PHD candidates John Wagle and Kevin Carroll. And guys, we're going to be talking about the kBox and flywheel technology and all things associated with it. These guys are breaking it down, studying everything about it right now, and are doing super work. We're actually going to post a bunch of links below in the descriptions on YouTube, Podomatic, and iTunes, and on the webpage itself, and Facebook, for you guys to be able to check out what they've already published. But we're going to start talking out with what flywheel training actually is and how it works. You know, they get into how the device actually assists with training and what actually inputs the output that you put into the work. And then we get into a whole bunch of stuff that they're doing, what they're looking at, why they're looking at, and we get into abstracts and papers they've already put out and the direction the research is going. Guys, obviously, I'm a huge supporter of everything that, the people are doing out there at ETSU. Dr. DeWeese will be here in July. Really excited to have him here and really excited that they're branching out and they're bringing in coaches who are trying to improve themselves in an educational standpoint to help improve the field. So kudos, Kevin and John, for the work you're doing. Appreciate you guys being on. I hope you enjoy the talk as much as I did, guys. I think it's fantastic. Let's get right to it.
Guys, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. Let's take a quick rundown. Let everybody know where you guys are, who you are, and what you're doing out there.
I'm John Wagle. I actually come to ETSU from DePaul University. I was the director of sports performance there before leaving and coming down to pursue my PhD under all the great faculty here. And I've been a strength coach, I guess, for 5 to 7 years. So I was kind of a part-time strength coach at the Division III level, helping out as I was a baseball coach. But originally from Illinois, and now I'm excited to be down at ETSU and learning from all the faculty and the students too. We kind of lean on each other to learn a lot, and we get to be around coaching and all that too. So it's a really exciting time, kind of all around. But
yep. Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Kevin. I've been at ETSU. It's my 4th year now, so I'm getting my PhD. I'm finishing up right now. I got my master's here as well. I've worked with a variety of different sports teams here in strength and conditioning. Most notably softball is my primary responsibility. Mm-hmm. Before I was here, I did an internship with the strength and conditioning staff for Texas football. And prior to that, I was at Appalachian State. I got my bachelor's there and worked in the weight room there as well, mm-hmm. as an intern.
It's awesome. And obviously the staff there and the faculty, it's second to none and not a group that needs much of an
absolutely.
Intro. No, yeah. We could go on and on about all that.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got some good opportunities to be around, and we get to be around every day.
Oh, no doubt about it. And
right.
What I think is interesting, though, is you look at the people that you're studying under, and most of them are more weightlifting oriented. But we're here mm-hmm. today to talk about a different tool.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just start talking about what the kBox is. This is something that's kind of become a sexy toy. People look at it and, because Ryan Horn puts those great videos up where he's got his guys and they're making all these crazy faces. So let's really talk about, what it is and how it provides this eccentric overload. And let's start rolling from there.
Right. Yeah. So basically, what the kBox is a flywheel resistance. There's three main components to it, and it has to do with the disc on the front. A lot of so that disc that attaches to the front of the device pretty much provides the resistance. So the three kind of core elements to it is the radius of that disc, the mass of the disc, and thirdly, it's the acceleration of that disc. So the acceleration is user created. So based on how you're moving it, that depends on how fast the disc is moving, how much resistance it's applying.
And for the coach, that means that intent really matters, strength level really matters, and explosive strength. All those things matter because they're going to influence the resistance that the device gives you. The other thing that potentially makes a difference is the tether, we'll call it, that attaches to the handle or strap or whatever. The kBox provides a lot of accessories. But Jay, I come from the basketball world like you. Working at DePaul, I had some tall fellas. So the exercise selection and the height of the athlete are actually going to impact what happens to the device more than likely as well, just from like a physics equation standpoint on how this device is working, not necessarily that it's been put in a research article or anything like that.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Awesome. So the simple breakdown: big heavy disc, a lot of work to do. Small skinny disc, not as much work to do.
Absolutely.
But what's awesome down there at ETSU is this is what your guys' research is.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of the stuff you guys are doing and what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we are, unsure of exactly how that resistance compares to traditional loading, which kind of led us to explore, the different kinetics. And we collected EMG. We haven't done anything with it as far as publication or anything just yet, but that stuff needed to be addressed before we could even think about adaptation or anything like that. And Dr. Sato is the primary investigator, and Dr. Mike Stone is, the lab director. So those two obviously are, the big figureheads that are driving some of these questions and putting us honestly in a position to be able to do some cool research. But those were kind of the initial questions with Kevin and I's coaches college abstract, was to start to address those.
Right, and the first thing we got to ask whenever we see a new device on the market or any device is, how does it work? Before we start thinking about how is John going to use this with his athletes, we got to figure out what it's actually doing, what kind of resistance it's applying. Is it a consistent resistance, or is it variable? And that's one of the first things we did for our coaches college abstract was we wanted to determine if the force within an individual, like during a set, would remain constant. So that was pretty much what we did, and what we found out was that it does. So within an individual, within a set, that force output remained constant. So then we can kind of build off of that, and we started to get some other ideas off of that, and we can start to build a more broad research question, right?
Yeah, and really kind of what we were talking about earlier with the radius of the disc, the mass of the disc, those things mattering. There's an absolute element to the resistance that the kBox can give you, but there's also a relative element provided by the lifter. So those kind of things led Dr. Sato and Dr. Stone to ask those questions, and so we collected and kind of interpreted that information. But there was a difference. It was same for an individual across the set, but like Kevin said, there was a difference between individuals across different loading conditions, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about, that strength level matters, intent level matters. All of those things are going to influence the resistance that the kBox gives back to you.
So let's break that down a little bit more too. Yeah.
Okay.
So we saw two major. So within that individual, within a set, like we talked about, it's the same, but there were two differences that we saw, and that was when they increased the size of the wheel, the force changed. So from that, we were able to determine that there is some form of overload being applied when you increase the size of that disc. So that was important. And the other thing that we noticed within a single disc size, between subjects, the force was different. So within a subject, or within a lifter, whatever, it's the same. But based on a person's effort level or strength level, it can change. So that third core element of the flywheel resistance that the kBox uses, the user created acceleration, that becomes a tool to use that, I guess, the more force you put into the device, the harder it's going to get. If that makes sense. So.
Yep.
No, that's awesome. So then, looking at the paper, then, what are some key takeaways that coaches can take from it?
I think that the biggest thing is that this does provide progressive overload. So there's some commonalities in at least the training methods that you're used to in that regard. And some of the subsequent questions we're going to answer is exactly what is that intensity, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about that later. But it does provide some sort of alternative stimulus. Again, we're trying to figure that out to some extent. But the big thing that I think the kBox does is that it regulates the resistance based on the person. And that's unique in that a barbell does not necessarily do that.
Right. 315 is 315.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. So there are some regulatory elements just inherent in the device.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's very interesting. And how do you say? So there's all these different types of eccentric overload that we kind of hear about right now. And kBox is interesting because it might be different, right? So it's probably different than traditional exercise, traditional lifting, but it's also probably different than some of these other methods out there. So it brings up an interesting question. We don't know the answer to this yet, and it's one of the things we're looking at right now. But can this be a novel stimulus for someone who might be more advanced? Maybe it's an advanced bodybuilder who, traditional lifting is just they're kind of at their peak. Maybe this is a novel way to stimulate the muscle, because the adaptation of a muscle is going to be dependent on the stimulus that you apply to it. So if kBox is a novel stimulus to the muscle, then it could provide some type of novel adaptation that someone hasn't achieved yet. So
no, that's awesome. And I think that using and seeing it used with my student athletes and using it myself, I think that whatever value feel has to it, I think there's definitely a unique adaptation that comes from using the device.
Yeah. And those questions will be answered a little bit later, but, kind of what we started off with is what Dr. Sato and Dr. Stone, first strive to do, I think, is what does this device do? And so that's kind of where we're at, I think, in the process right now, is to kind of answer like, okay, this thing is obviously doing something unique. How is it unique? And that's what we're trying to kind of figure out, because once you answer those acute questions, then you can start to make kind of better guesses on what it's going to do adaptation wise and more chronically, and then how it fits into your training plan or how it fits into, preparation for this sport, that sport, whatever. But, first you got to kind of answer some of these fundamental questions, and that's even if you're coaching or if you're on the academic side or anything, you have to kind of figure out what tools you have at your disposal, and that's
right. And where it fits into your plan.
Where it fits in,
right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And what they need to be prepared at or with to be prepared to use it,
For sure.
Right.
Yep.
for it to actually be able to provide the adaptation that it should.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So you've hinted a couple things. Let's look at the future, since we know what's going on now and what you guys are trying to do. So where do you guys see this continued dissection of flywheels going with the research that you're looking at?
Well, the big thing, we've said it a couple times already, is we have to figure out what the intensity is, what load is being applied.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's probably the most challenging thing that we've had to encounter so far. We have to figure out how to quantify it, So, like we said, 315 is 315 on the bar, but since there's that user-generated, resistance within the kBox, we have to figure out how do you measure it. So how do that, my athlete didn't do too much today on the kBox, or how do I know if they didn't do enough? And one of the possibilities we're looking into for that is velocity. So we're going to track velocity of the movement. So using some of those velocity-based training principles that some of those great minds have kind of figured out, we're gonna use those kind of velocity ranges to maybe help figure out those load ranges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's ultimately, I think, going to be the question that needs answered for coaches to start to figure out, okay, how do I progress this upwards? Where does it fit into my plan? Is being able to quantify, okay, what does, the small wheel to the medium wheel to the large wheel mean for each individual athlete, possibly? Because, our coach's college paper kind of suggests that there might be some differences across individuals between loading conditions. So, that might be something that is pretty interesting, actually. And, Dr. Sato and Dr. Stone have, I think, kind of devised a pretty good plan to look at some of those things and start to answer those questions for coaches.
Right.
So then, so we know those velocity areas and target velocities and such. How are you measuring it on that? How are you measuring?
I'm sorry.
How are you measuring it on the kBox? Like, I'm looking at mine right now. It's right there. I'm looking at mine and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where I would tether a gym aware on it, but I don't. So how are you guys looking at that? How are you looking to do that?
Magic, yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. No, right now we're using the push device on it because it's wireless, so we don't have to worry about attaching it to a bar or anything. We're holding a PVC pipe to put it in the correct position so that it recognizes what we're actually doing.
I'm an expert wheel spinner, so the people get to hold the PVC pipe in the typical back squat position while I spin the wheel for them and get it going. So that's kind of the current method that is being workshopped right now. But we'll see how it adapts and how it kind of plays out when.
So then that you're only looking at squat then in that situation.
For now.
Yes, for now. Mm-hmm.
So then what other exercises, if there were, did you look at in the paper? And can we talk about how you broke those down and separated those individually?
We did not. We've only looked at the back squat. We want to keep it pretty bare bones so we don't confuse ourselves, by looking at too many things at once.
It's pretty easy to do.
Right, yeah. Everybody, I don't say everybody. I hope everybody squats. So we want to figure out, how does that work? That's a popular exercise. Everyone wants to know about the squat. So we look at that first, and then we kind of branch off into other realms from there.
Yeah, and it's kind of a progression of even answering these basic questions of what does this device do. That step one might be, what does this do with the squat?
Yeah.
And then step two, before we even get into adaptation, before we even get anything out, it could be that we need to answer what other exercises do. But
now I've used it for some bicep burners myself, but I don't. I haven't attached a force plate to it or nothing yet.
No. But I'll tell you, I think that's a huge point that people overlook when they're looking at these things as well, is that, they get all excited because it's like, your new toys are always so pretty on Christmas. But that's what we use it for, is we squat with it. I've had a couple of guys who have done some like hip hinging things with it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like my like super duper advanced,
Yeah.
To the point where it's almost like I don't even want to put, weightless straps in this guy's hands like this. Let's just do this because it's different and we know we need to do something there. But go ahead.
Just earlier on, we talked about too how even the tether may influence the resistance given back. So, exercise selection really might matter.
Right.
And that's something, again, we haven't explored yet, but just from, kind of how the device works, it might matter for even what resistance the device is giving back to you and, all that. So definitely questions worth exploring.
Oh, 100%. And if you're going to look at something, you might as well look at what it's really best for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you could argue other things, but you'd probably lose. And the second being, what is the biggest thing that it can do? I'm sure that you had, 2 thick plates and a small one on when you were doing your bicep burnouts. But some people can't even squat that. So it's like when you can handle more load, it's just going to give you more variance and better data.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there are probably, some different loading conditions that we can explore and things in the future too, because that's a good point you brought up of our initial exploration with Coach Sato or Dr. Sato, and then Coach Talk now, But Dr. Sato,
Coach Talk.
Coach Hat, was small, medium, large wheel. And so, kind of one thing that's being potentially added to the next round is adding smaller increment loading conditions too.
And combining wheels.
And doing things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be a kind of another interesting wrinkle that Dr. Sato and Dr. Stone have put out there.
And it's just like you said it earlier, there's so many different toys out there right now, and it's not about determining that the kBox or whatever other tool you want to use is the only thing you need to use in your training. It's about where does it fit into your plan. And I think that's what we really try to do here at ETSU with everything that we do. Is it's not about how much their testosterone changed or something. It's about how did it affect performance? Where does it fit into your periodized plan? And how do you use it going forward? And that's kind of what
the information needs to be actionable.
Right. Exactly.
For sure.
No, 100%. And no, I think that's great. But I think that now the next question is, we stated earlier that it's effort-based.
Yep.
So how do you, as a coach, being devil's advocate, how do you combat that? Because you know where I'm going because you coach basketball.
Yeah.
So
not to get into a diatribe about necessarily my coaching philosophy, but I think if intent is part of your program from day one, and it's something that you express as valuable from when you first get with the guys, and they know it's important, and they know that ultimately that they are important to you too. So this is something that not only you care about, but that you care about them and you care about their performance. That the kBox again just becomes a tool that gets introduced into the way that your guys go about their training.
Yep.
So, I think that ultimately it happens way before you introduce a device or something novel or, anything like that.
Because at the end of the day,
you coach.
At the end of the day, if your athletes aren't putting effort, why the hell are you using, this piece of tech? Why fix that?
Yeah.
Get your athletes ready to train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. No, that's a great answer, and it's
Mhm.
because I think that it's really a fascinating tool that I think we're going to find can do a lot of things. I think the one place that we're going to see it show up having the highest amount of transfer is cutting, change of direction, those things. Because people that really do have a high level of intent are going to be able now to stop. Because even more so than the eccentric overload is just the stopping power that you have to have. At least what I've seen with my guys. But the guys who 315 is always 315, yes. But you can't make 315 look like 405 without putting 405 on the bar. And I think that would probably be, and it's probably my own fault for not really having a good enough understanding of the meter and how to use it and implement that better, since I'm pretty infantile in the stages of what we're doing with it.
At the very least, the meter provides objective feedback, though.
Right.
Which, from a coaching standpoint, whenever guys can see in front of them a number go up or down or stay the same, that's meaningful to them.
Yep.
And it gives them something just of external motivation to try harder.
Yep.
Yes, 100%. So then, if let's switch spots, okay? You're coming out here and you're going to say, this is why I think that these flywheel type devices are important and why coaches need to look into being more forward thinking in these types of things. Like I just brought up, I think that that's one of the spots where it's going to show up in performance, is that stop in the cutting. Where do you guys foresee this having its highest transfer training when it comes to actual athletic performance?
I don't want to speculate too much because we really have to get to that level where we're actually doing some longer term stuff. But if I had to give an opinion, I would say hypertrophy. I would say that just anecdotally, that thing crushed me, man. So
he had more than one round on the biceps.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I think that. And I have nothing to really support this besides my own experience, but metabolically, it was tough getting up and down those weight room stairs the next day. You know what I mean? So I would like to see, its effect on, muscle size or hypertrophy, and that's where I personally think. So maybe earlier in the training plan,
No, I think that's fantastic. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly, and I'm a little bit more careful to speculate at this point too, because I haven't done as many bicep blasters on it as Kevin has. Yeah, but it's at this point it's novel, and sometimes you just need a novel stimulus. So where it fits in, I'm not sure, but we're seeing that it is different somehow. We're not exactly sure how it's different, but the fact that it is different is important, and is something that is worth continuing to explore to see if we can answer some of those questions. But it's loosely educated speculation right now with just what information we do have on the device.
Yeah.
Completely and totally fair enough. I love it. It's we're going to stick to our guns and we're going to keep digging until we find the answers.
That's what we got to do.
Yep.
Yeah, but what we do know is it's extremely reliable rep to rep, and it's going to be based upon the size of the disc and the speed of the movement and that intent, like everything we do matters. And
strength level too, it would appear.
Yep. And we know that we've got coaches doing research out there at ETSU that are going to dig and find the answers. And guys, I can't thank you enough for doing all that and being with us today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Kevin, John, I appreciate it, man. This is going to be up real soon. People are going to love it, man. And we will be in touch real shortly. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jay.
Before we do go,
okay,
let's also remind people that the velocity people that they're talking about will be here in July, as will Dr. Brad DeWeese from ETSU.
Yes, he will.
Yep, and these guys will be there too, coming with Brad. So there'll be plenty of folks coming from the Olympic training site. But man, it's stoked that you guys will be able to make it, and really excited that you'll be here and to have Brad and Brian, and can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on with us today, fellas. Really do appreciate it.
Dr. Brooks will deliver a good one, that's for sure. So that's
no doubt about that.
That's worth its price right there.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, guys. We'll be in touch real soon. All right.
All right. Take care, Jay.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yep.
And again, a huge thanks to John and Kevin for being on and talking with us today, guys. Make sure you click those papers, the links below. Check out what they're doing. I mean, it's coaches going out there and trying to find answers for other coaches, and that's what they're doing out there at ETSU. And I can't thank them all enough for pushing the profession forward. Absolutely fantastic. And guys, as always, if you enjoyed the discussion, please share it to the social media outlet of your choice. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. Spread the word, guys. Just trying to get great information out to all the great coaches out there. And hopefully we'll see you guys, along with John and Kevin and Dr. DeWeese, here for the 2017 seminar, July 21st and 22nd at the University of Richmond. We couldn't be more excited for the lineup. We hope you guys are as well. We hope to see you then. And guys, we'll be back next week with another awesome guest. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We will see you then.